Hey, everybody. You might have heard by now that the Senate voted down, mainly along partisan lines, Republicans in favor and Democrats against, the coronavirus stimulus package last night, called the CARES Act, CARES. It is an acronym. You can look it up. Anyway, I put together, there's a lot of disinformation going around. I watched the Senate deliberations last night on C-SPAN. I took one of the senator's speeches and summarized it. The original was 45 minutes long. I summarized it down to 12 minutes. I think he does a really good job of laying out exactly what is in this bill. I hope you stay tuned all the way to the end so that you're informed about exactly what's in this bill. That's coming up in just a second.
We must pass this legislation. I was very disappointed to see that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle chose to vote no on even the ability to move forward with debating this legislation tonight. And to my colleague, the Democratic leader, who said this is a highly partisan bill, that's just not the case. Let's put the partisanship aside. Let's do what's best for the American people. I will tell you that over the past several days, through a bipartisan process, we sat down, Democrat and Republican, in 4 different task forces, and we put together the elements of this legislation. Our goals are simple. First, slow the spread of the virus. Second, we need to help employers to continue paying their employees through this crisis. And third, recognizing that not every employer is going to be able to keep employees. Even those who have some business going don't have enough business. We want to be sure we're providing the resources to help those individuals. These are the people who are falling between the cracks. They can't stay at work because their work no longer has any revenue. We need to assist those people. I'm pleased to say that the Phase 3 package we've negotiated, by the way, accomplishes all 3 of those objectives. All 3. We do it through 4 major policy areas. We do it now, right away, to bring relief to the people we're representing, which is why we've got to pass this legislation and pass it now. First, in terms of helping people, this Phase 3 package provides direct payments. These are direct payments, checks to individuals, $1,200 per person. If you're a couple, it's $2,400. And then it's $500 per child. That check getting out to people will give people some extra dollars to make the difference in being able to pay bills, paying a car payment, paying rent, being able to put food on the table. For those who are out of work, these checks also serve as a bridge to getting into the new unemployment insurance system I'll talk about now. This is the most significant expansion of our unemployment insurance system in history by far. It's going to significantly expand the number of individuals who are eligible to receive benefits, particularly the self-employed. So it broadens those who qualify for unemployment insurance. These folks, by the way, have never been covered by unemployment insurance before. What's more, it provides a flat increase of $600 per week per person in the unemployment insurance system. This means that for low and low-medium income folks, let's say $40,000 to $50,000 a year, they will essentially have wage replacement now through unemployment insurance. This is a big difference. In Ohio, unemployment insurance is 1/3 of your wages for those same individuals. Now it'll be topped up. So, to the point earlier that this is a highly partisan bill, I'm sorry. This legislation reflects the priorities of Democrats and Republicans, and this is an example of that, and we have to acknowledge it. Second, the stimulus package is going to provide relief for small businesses that are trying to stay afloat by ensuring they're going to have access to credit and liquidity needed to adapt and retool their businesses to weather this storm. We're going to accomplish this in a couple ways. One is through a major expansion of what's called the Small Business Administration 7A loan program. This is going to go through businesses that are currently providing funding to small businesses. So it's the community bank, it's the savings and loan, it's the credit union, it's the regional bank. Wherever people are banking, they'll be able to get these loans directly. Specifically, we're providing hundreds of billions of dollars in loans to small and medium-sized businesses they can use for a variety of expenses, including payroll, including paying rent, paying mortgages. And by the way, if they use it for that, the loan is forgiven. It really converts into a grant. If they use it for payroll, again, let me repeat, to keep workers, because that's one of the objectives here. If they use it for rent, if they use it for mortgage payments, the loan is written off entirely. It essentially is a grant to those small businesses. For businesses that might not be eligible for these SBA loans, Phase 3 stimulus helps provide immediate liquidity through a number of different ways. These are larger businesses, say over 500 employees. One is through the tax code. Specifically, our bill includes provisions that allow businesses to put cash in the hands of companies so they can keep their workers employed and be ready to get back and running when the crisis is over. By the way, these tax incentives are things like not having to pay the employer side of the payroll tax, a 6.2% FICA tax. That's incredibly important to these businesses. They've told us that. Give us a break on that for this year, 2020, and we can keep more people, and we can keep our doors open. That's probably the biggest single one here. But guess what? In 2021 and 2022, they've got to pay that back. So the best part of these tax incentives is that the large majority of them are simply timing changes, meaning that while there are direct reductions in taxes now in 2020 when they need it, much of that reduction is going to be paid back in coming years. Third, the Phase 3 package takes precise and targeted measures to relieve particularly distressed industries that are at risk of hemorrhaging jobs and closing down if we don't. I know the Democratic leader said he doesn't think help should go to businesses. I understand the Democrats actually want to give more help to some businesses. So I guess they'll pick and choose the businesses. But in this case, these are the businesses we all know are unfortunately facing the possibility of shutting down unless we do something. Think of the airline industries. Think of the airlines that right now have seen their passengers be reduced by 80, some say 90%. Think of the airports that are closing. Think of the hotel businesses. Think of the other travel and tourism businesses, entertainment businesses. So these folks will be able to access what's called the Exchange Stabilization Fund to be able to get a loan. And by the way, they'll have to pay back that loan. But it is the federal government stepping in and providing a backup so that they can get that loan and be able to stay in business. And then finally, and I think most importantly, perhaps in this legislation, is funding and policy changes to slow the spread of the virus. Frankly, as I view this is to buy time. It's to buy time for us to be able to increase the capacity of our healthcare system. This Phase 3 package ensures that the men and women who are on the front lines of this epidemic every day get more support. It increases funding, which we've already increased once, but an additional $4.5 billion for the Centers for Disease Control. That $4.5 billion, $1.5 billion of it has to go to the states. This is going to ensure we can continue to monitor and respond to this virus as this pandemic continues. I think this is incredibly important. It also sends more money out to ensure that we can get these antiviral therapies going. Think of Tamiflu for influenza, something that is key to dealing with this crisis as we begin to turn things around is going to be having an ability to keep people healthier should they contract the virus. To me, maybe the most important parts of this legislation, because I believe in order to get our great country back on track and get people back to work, we need to have some sort of metrics in place. So maybe the most important part is to get better data on the true public health risk that's out there. And this legislation does that. So this bill provides an increase in funding for health care, a major increase, in addition to what I just talked about $100 billion for hospitals and all health care providers, with $75 billion being appropriated to HHS in order to be able to support our health care systems in a more flexible manner, about $30 billion in Medicare payment increases for hospitals that are directly treating patients with coronavirus. This is what they're asking for. Finally, we have a couple key proposals that we've championed over the years to support people with disabilities, particularly in institutional settings that are at increased risk of contracting the virus. That's in this legislation. We have the Money Follows the Person program, which supports transitioning Medicaid beneficiaries from dangerous settings, which some of them are in where there's a lot of activity into home-based long-term care. That's important too. As I said earlier, these are exceptional times. Not since the influenza epidemic of 1918, 102 years ago, has the United States of America been so swept up by a health care crisis like this. I'm pleased with some of the steps we've taken so far at the federal level to respond to this pandemic. We talked about them tonight. Phase one, $8.3 billion focused on health care. Phase two, beginning the process of helping workers and helping people get back to work and helping health care more. Now phase three, which is an unprecedented amount of support from American taxpayers to ensure we can get people through this, help them weather the storm. And again, these are Republican ideas and Democratic ideas through a process where we had 4 task forces that were bipartisan. We worked long hours. I was part of one of those task forces. Now we need to get this legislation passed. The American people deserve it.